So this Super Duty that you see being ripped apart in this video, I'm sure it's not the first time that you guys have seen it. It belongs to the super popular YouTube channel TFL Truck. They called on us for their No Pavement Needed video series. This is where they were taking this F-250 quad cab short bed equipped with a 7.3 Godzilla motor, a 2,000-pound Hawk pop-up camper in the rear. They're doing a trans-American journey in this thing all on dirt. They wanted a custom-tuned suspension system so that this thing could handle whatever it was that they were going to come up on in this new rig. We were happy to work with the guys at King Shocks, the guys at Deaver Leaf Springs to make that truck exactly what they wanted it to be. I'm not going to go too in-depth on any of that. I will link to their videos in the description. They did a full build video. They've already got one up about the beginning of their journey. You can follow that on their channel. Why this truck is significant enough that we're doing our own video on it. It's the first Super Duty to come into our shop with a 7.3 gas, meaning we prototyped our 7.3 gas commuter, backcountry, and pin top systems on this truck with the gas-specific coil springs. The main difference between the diesel and the gas coil springs is of course going to be in spring rate. The gas motor is going to be inherently lighter than its diesel counterpart, so we reduced the rate of the diesel coil by about 20% in this gas coil spring. The same manufacturing process though between the gas and the diesel holds. They're going to be shot peened, preset, powder coated by the manufacturer to ensure they never sag on you and they look great for a very, very long time. To support the extended travel capabilities of these coil springs and the shocks that we're going to throw on these kits, we provide Crown Performance extended stainless steel brake lines. These give you the extra length needed to reach the bottom of travel without tensioning your factory rubber lines, and the stainless lines actually provide a much better and more firm pedal feel. With all of our performance suspension systems, we provide you our high clearance bump stop bracket. The reason we do this is inherent to a track bar design in the front end of a straight axle truck. If you extend the travel stroke, the axle is going to move more laterally side to side through that extended travel stroke than it did from the factory. So we actually have a high clearance portion to the side of the bump stop that faces the coil spring to ensure that there's no contact between the coil spring and the factory bump location. Installation's super easy because the factory bump just pops directly into our bracket. The Carli coil spring installs in the factory position with the factory isolator on top. If you're running a remote reservoir shock, the backcountry, or the pin top system, you'll have to put our reservoir mount on top of the isolator as well. Arguably the most important front-end component that we provide is the adjustable track bar. It allows you to run a longer length track bar to center that axle to the chassis and support that additional suspension travel. On the axle side, you'll find a 1.25 inch FK bearing chromoly heat-treated Teflon lined race heim. FK is the best in the business. We've been using them since our inception here, and they're the best heim joint that money can buy. We lock that in place with our proprietary jam-it nut. Our jam-it nut, I'm sure you guys are familiar with what a jam nut is and how it works. Our jam-it nut is tapered like a lug nut, and that taper on that nut goes in and mates to a tapered machined surface on the inside of the track bar. This provides 100% more clamping surface area as well as pinch while speccing it with red Loctite just to make sure that that jam nut doesn't go anywhere once you set the torque after the bar is set to length. On the frame end, you're going to find another FK joint. It's a 7/8 uniball that we surround with a proprietary damping material, and we preload all that into the frame end of the track bar. There's enough damping to drastically extend the life of both serviceable ends of the track bar, but not enough to provide any slop in the actual wheel itself. The 3/8 wall construction of the bar and these two serviceable ends combine to make this the strongest link you could throw onto the front end of that truck. With death wobble being a concern in brand new trucks these days, this is something where you can check death wobble off your list. On the subject of death wobble in these brand new trucks, you've nailed the track bar, now it's time to proactively handle death wobble in the caster area. Lifting the front of the truck 2.5 to 3.5 inches, you're going to decrease caster by about 1 degree over what you expect from the factory. We give you a 2 degree shim to roll that upper ball joint back relative to the lower to not only regain your caster but get an additional degree of positive caster beyond what your truck was from the factory. This is imperative to ensuring that your truck tracks straight and that the front end feels stable overall. With the newfound suspension travel, you're going to have to do something to address your front sway bar. We have a few options. You can drop your factory sway bar with one of our drop brackets. You can combine a small drop bracket and our awesome upgraded 17.4 stainless serviceable end links. Or, of course, what the TFL guys chose, our full replacement torsion sway bar that also utilizes our 17.4 stainless end links. The big selling point of the Carli sway bar over the factory sway bar. The factory sway bar is a big forged piece of immobile steel. It works great for control of the vehicle. If you're going to run a snowplow on the front, a massive cab over camper that weights the front suspension, that's when you want to keep your factory sway bar. For everybody else out there, pulling that factory sway bar off and replacing it with ours, which is an actual torsion spring with 3/4 inch steel arms as well as our stainless sway bar end links, will allow some deflection in that sway bar to absorb a right tire specific or a left tire specific obstacle without throwing your head against the B-pillar of that vehicle. So it's going to allow for a much better ride quality and overall way better driving experience on road and off road. It's a huge difference in softness on the road. It's a huge difference in compliance when you're out in the dirt. Overall, I mean, it's really the best bang for the buck improvement that we offer here. And the sway bar is a spring. It's the most often neglected spring rate because people don't think of a sway bar as a spring so much as a control. But it is a huge determinant of the end ride quality of that vehicle. Even with the custom springs in the back and our torsion sway bar out front and 2,000 pounds of constant bed load, this TFL truck drove like it was on rails when all was said and done. We had our custom tuning in it. So the sway bar is a very worthwhile option. We've already done an entire video on the radius arms, their construction, why you want them, the process by which we make them, box them, powder coat them, get them to you. I'll link that in the description as well, so I won't go too in depth here, but the main highlights of these radius arms: limit straps to protect your shocks, an extra 1 degree of caster that corrects the actual axle mount to combine with that caster shim that we provide you, because a little more caster never hurt anybody, as we were discussing before. In addition to that, they are a full clamshell and boxed construction, 3/16 and 1/4 inch steel mixed, all cold rolled USA steel. We have a stainless steel spherical bearing at the back that's fully serviceable and greasable, and then they connect to the factory mounts on the axle with the factory bushings also in place. They offer a 1/2 inch more tire clearance, which is key for guys wanting to run those 37-13.5s, and again, having less deflection in the joint and a little bit more caster, they overall just tighten the front end feel while providing a bit more ride compliance. For rear springs, this truck had 3 different sets. It had the factory leaf springs with our progressive Adapacks on the bottom. These remove the factory overload in favor of a progressive mini pack that's going to keep the rear a little bit softer. It's going to make it more progressive so it's not bouncing off that overload wall at the bottom. Additionally, it's going to keep it a lot more planted while maintaining payload capacity and eliminating the factory blocks. There's a lot of advantages to the Adapack. That's what we use to tune our commuter system and to kind of start out our backcountry system. We then remove that with the factory leaf spring pack, transfer the shackle to our full progressive leaf springs, and those go in to finish the backcountry and then tune the pin top. These are a reduced capacity over factory. They take the couple leafs of the factory pack and they expand out to a ton of leafs that split the rate. So it's going to ride much better, it's going to be a lot more progressive, it's going to remain a lot more planted, but it will sacrifice payload capacity. Guys with massive trailers will need to run some sort of an airbag kit to regain capacity and have that rear adjustable load height that they're looking for. And then when you let the airbag pressure out, you've got the nice ride of those progressive leaf springs. Additionally, and not pictured here, we have a standard HD full spring pack. This is 1,000 pounds of constant bed load capacity over our regular full progressive leaf springs. Because these guys are running a 2,000 pound camper, that's what we had to build a spring pack for. So we called Deaver Spring, we had them build us an XHD variant, which was 1,000 pounds over our 1,000 pound capacity leaf springs. So they called them the Extreme Heavy Duty. These springs look notably different. They're a much heavier grade steel, but you'll notice they're still a full progressive pack. So we got the progression with the load capacity for a full win-win scenario with that hot camper they're going to be running in the back. That's not a production spring. We do have just the Adapack, the full spring packs, and then the heavy-duty spring packs available for these gas systems. in the Super Duty platform. In its time here, this truck wore 3 different shock packages. We started with the commuter and tuned those to the Adipacks. Then we threw in the backcountry shocks, tuned those to the Adipacks, and then to the full spring packs. That being a mid-level system can be run with either option. We then threw the pin-top shocks in with those full springs in the back before we went the full custom route. The custom tuning in the Fox shocks means we change the valve stacks to be what we want them to be to get the end result for ride quality, on that given platform with those springs. The pin top, we actually have quite a bit more control, which is why you'll see all the custom projects that we do here are normally a king shock. And that's because we can actually change the heart of the shock. The piston itself is Carli suspension specific. We design the piston, we produce the piston, King throws them in the shocks for us. It gives us a level of control in the Kings that you can't get from any other shock manufacturer. Obviously this one again went the full custom route because it had a much heavier spring to support the 2,000 pounds in the bed, so it needed a lot more damping both on compression and rebound there to control the spring rate as well as the additional weight they had in the bed. I'm not going to go too deep into the result because you could watch their No Pavement Needed video series and see how happy they are with the truck, but we did, while the truck was in here, do a lot of recording of the process, so we wanted to share it with you guys, give you a little behind the scenes on the build for those of you that are interested. Any comments, questions, or concerns, hit us in the comment section. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one, and thanks for tuning in.